Detroit.
Hello from Detroit, the Motor City, Detroit, the Big D, Motown. There is no public oral history archive dedicated to Detroit music. We are going to build one, and you can help. We are going to start with the first responders to the Detroit sound, Detroit music journalists. Detroit music journalists have been key archivists of Detroit sounds that have changed the world, from Motown to techno, blues to jazz, to so much more. They have documented the bands. They have interviewed the musicians. They tell the stories so the music lives. This project is for them. This is the Detroit Sound Conservancy's first project. Please join us.
The nation and the world needs to know the importance and the critical nature of Detroit's place in music in the world.
I think the work of the Detroit Sound Conservancy is so critically important because in some ways this tends to be a city with such a rich musical history that it's almost taken for granted. So in all kinds of random places, people have tapes or articles or interviews they've done with all the artists that have come through here, all of the artists from all these different genres.
What's special about the Sound Conservancy, what's unique about it, is that genre barriers don't bother us.
Every city has a government, but if you really want to know the history of politics, you go to Washington, D.C. Well, I think it's the same thing. I mean, yeah, it's in Detroit, everybody's got music, but they haven't got Motown. They haven't got Alice Cooper, they haven't got the Bon Bonnet, they haven't got Funkadelic, they haven't got, we can blow, nobody can touch us.
We love all of the genres. If you made it in Detroit, if you musicked in Detroit, if you experienced music in Detroit, if you helped a party happen, if you wrote about it, if you played an instrument, if you were a DJ, if you were in any of those communities, we care about what you did and how you did it and how you cherish it.
That's what I say Detroit Sound Conservancy, not Detroit Motown, not Detroit Jazz, it's Detroit Sound. When you're talking about the sound, nobody else can touch us on that. Nobody else can touch it, and that's why, that needs to be archived because that's the one, the Detroit sound, if there's anything that can really, be a major part of the city's restoration, it's going to be the sound.
History-wise, period, it's all of ours. Detroit as a city is integral to the country becoming what it is simply by helping to create the middle class. Music is always the soundtrack to that. It's the soundtrack of our life.
Stories have to be told or the history dies. Stories have to be told or the history dies.
Archiving and preserving Detroit music history is to put us back into the American story, to put us back on the map, the way that Berry Gordy put us on the map in the 1960s.
I think if this gets its proper due, I think archiving people would get a chance to look back and see, my God, all this is what we have, and that's why it's important. That's why it's important.
We would be able to compare ourselves again healthily with Memphis and Nashville and New Orleans and New York and all these amazing musical cities in this country. And without these archival practices, without these historical practices, we're not able to make that argument. Instead, we become the exception, that terrible place where everything goes bad. And that's not what I believe, and that's not what we are, and that's not what we can be.
Detroit.